Welcome, dear victims, to episode 33 of Creepypasta Night. So tonight, I'm gonna tell a bone-chilling tale, rather a true story, instead of a made-up story. Tonight, I'm gonna tell you the story of the ghost of Arkansas. Now, one night, somewhere in the state of Arkansas, probably 2009 or 2010, I was a little kid at the time. So, I lived in a 2-story house in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I was always afraid of the dark, and I was always afraid of monsters in the closet or under the bed or elsewhere in the dark. So my parents would always leave lights on around the house. But one night, possibly the scariest night of my life, my fears became reality. So one night, when all of my brothers were sleeping, I heard this unfamiliar voice underneath the bottom bunk bed. It was saying, "Monsters, monsters, come and get O'Brien. Monsters, monsters, come and get O'Brien." Over and over and over again. Eventually I got annoyed with it, and I said, "Monsters aren't real." And then the voice said, "How do you know monsters aren't real?" Whatever this was being like a smart aleck. Although I knew it was taunting me at the same time. Now, whatever this was, I'm gonna stick to calling it a ghost. So this ghost, it obviously wanted me dead. So this ghost was ordering me to do things. I kept mouthing off as the little kid I was. I spent the whole night talking back and forth with this ghost. And that's when the unthinkable happened. The ghost challenged me to look under the bottom bunk bed. I was a smart boy. I didn't look under there because I knew that was how bad things happen to people. Now, I just got out of bed and tried to go sleep with my parents. But I decided not to be a baby and run away like that. Instead, I just went back into my own bed and tried to figure out what it was. I kept mouthing off to whatever this ghost was, and it told me that I better go to sleep, and it's gonna come and look at me, and if I'm not sleeping, it was gonna eat me. I wasn't tired, so I just pretended to be asleep just for my own sake, just for the sake of my own life. But my hand was sticking down at the crack between the bunk bed and the wall. I felt some cold mass go through that crack, and then it just vanished, and it said, "Please don't touch me." That's when I knew that I was dealing with a ghost. It was definitely a ghost that was taunting me. We spent all night mouthing off back and forth to each other and making threats to each other. This was most likely going to be the scariest night of my life so far. I knew exactly what this ghost wanted, and I wasn't ready to give it to it. So I stayed awake all night, arguing back and forth with whatever ghost this was, all night long, surprised that my brothers were able to sleep through all of that. Eventually, after what seemed like eternities, the morning dawn finally came, and the ghost had to cross over. But before the ghost crossed over, I decided that I had had enough of that ghost. So I spent the entire hour of dawn cussing the ghost out. And keep in mind, I was around 5 or 6 years old at the time. So, and I spent that whole hour after the crack of dawn cussing that ghost out. Luckily the ghost didn't get annoyed and do anything back. Eventually the ghost just vanished, and I couldn't communicate with it anymore. But the memory still remains. So far, that was one of the scariest nights that I will never forget. And I'm constantly worried that whatever type of ghost that was haunting me that night will have no problem doing it again in the future sometime. And I'm afraid that there is nothing preventing that from happening.